Hey guys, Grumpy here with a tier list video. So we just wrapped up Rum Runners. Just at the end of every series we do a tier list video. This one is going to be for vanilla hull mods. A couple disclaimers up front. I just want to say that these this tier list is entirely subjective. It's based on the way that I play the game. A lot of your favorite hull mods are probably going to be lower rated than you'd expect, and some of the hull mods that you've never used will be higher rated. Um, I don't know how to make an objective list. I'm not even going to attempt to try to make an objective list. So that, with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the tier list. So first of all is accelerated shielding, accelerated shields. What this does is it increases the rate at which your shield opens. Oh, sorry, it should not be in S tier. It increases the rate at which your shield opens, and then it also increases the turn rate of your shields. Um, it's an okay perk. I never really use it. I understand it's really good on omnidirectional shields, so shields that can open and close anywhere on your ship. I mostly play with shield conversion front, which we'll talk about later. So my shields are usually always forward facing. Because of this, it doesn't really matter how fast my shield opens because the fire is only coming from one direction anyway, and I can't respond to fire on the other sides of my ship. So for that, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in C tier. I understand its value. I just don't use it in my fleets. Next up is Advanced Optics. Phenomenal perk. Hull mod, rather. It increases the range of beam weapons, and this extends also to point defense. Um, but it reduces I think the turn rate of your turrets by a little bit. Definitely worth the trade. Range is incredible in Starsector. Oof, I'm thinking of a different game. In Starsector, range is so incredibly important. Me, even as a safety overrides enjoyer, I recognize the value of range, and you just can't beat this. It stacks on top of integrated targeting unit. It stacks with all the rest of your range perks, gunnery implants. Um, what's the other one? There's another perk that increases your range. Anyway, this stacks with gunnery implants, so you can get some really long range beam weapons. So definitely worth it. Next up is advanced turret gyros. I'm gonna put it in C tier. Actually, I'm gonna move accelerated shields up a little bit. I'm putting it in C tier. Basically, actually, I'm gonna move it down to D tier. It increases the rate at which your weapons turn. Not really valuable. It's okay on something like an Eradicator, which has multiple turrets, has medium turrets, three of them in the center. Good on that. It allows you to basically pick things at range easier. But uh, most combat in the game is forward facing, so you don't really need. Like, this is good to respond to frigates that are on your flank, but there are other ways to respond to frigates and deal with them. So, I don't know. I don't really see its use, its value. Next up is armored weapon turrets. Put it in B tier. I'll put it above accelerated shields. Um, what it does is it reduces your turn rate, but uh, it reduces your turn rate by a little bit. But it also increases your ship's armor by 10%, and it increases the durability of your weapons. So your weapons are less likely to be um, knocked offline by EMP or direct damage. The the uh, the reason it's in B tier is because of that armor bonus. Really, mitigating EMP damage is okay, but really it's just that 10% armor bonus. Next up is Augment Dry Fields. Just a staple in my fleet. I use it on every ship that I can. Getting to 20 burn speed is so important because you need to be able to chase down fleets, and you also need to be able to evade them. Um, Usually this is a build-in on large frigates, so Atlas, Prometheus, um, the Starliner. It's usually a built-in. Automated repair unit. I believe this was what this one is called. It halves the time that your weapon systems are offline, and I think it also repairs some of your hull. You can't see this, but I have Starsector open on the other screen. Nope, it just reduces the time to repair disabled weapons and engines in combat by 50%. Just a nice to have. Um, doesn't really cost a lot of OP points. If you're going against high-tech ships, I would recommend it, so you can mitigate some of that EMP damage. It's just okay overall. Ooh, auxiliary thrusters. Alright. Auxiliary thrusters increases your maneuverability by 50%. It's really cheap. It's not a good perk, but because it's so cheap and it is useful, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Really, it should probably be C tier. Um, Being maneuverable is critical for my playstyle. Just being able to uh, not only flank behind a ship because you're faster than the ship, but be able to turn and actually deliver, firepower to that flank, that exposed area of a ship is important, and that's what auxiliary thruster does. Um, if you don't play that playstyle, then there's never a reason to take this. Again, most combat is forward facing, so being able to maneuver is not really critical. This is Ballistic Rangefinder. Good perk. Increases the range of small and medium weapons. At a minimum, you'll always get, I think, 100 range to your small weapons. If you have large ballistics, you'll get 200 range. Hold on. Okay. Increases the base range of small ballistic slots by 200 and medium weapons up to 100 if you have large ballistic slots on your ship. Otherwise, it'll just give you 100 range to your small ballistics. Yes. So you'll always get, no matter what, 100 range to small ballistics. This includes Vulcan Cannon, Light Machine Gun, um, the Light Assault Gun. So really good small ballistic weapons. It just increases their range a little further. Uh, Something that I use the small ballistics for is, like, I'll use the Light Dual Machine Gun. Dirt cheap weapon to fire. Costs, I think the flux of damage is 0.12, something like that. Very good at doing a lot of kinetic damage to shields, and because I'm safety overrides, I'll be in close contact with the enemy anyway. I'll use those traditionally point defense weapons as um, damaging weapons using Ballistic Rangefinder because it just gives it that little bit more range. So a really good perk there. Additional berthing. I never use this perk. Well, the only one time I use it is when I'm colonizing. But other than that, I don't think you ever need it. You can put it on a frigate, or not a frigate. You can put it on a freighter, like a Atlas or whatever, if you need additional crew. But honestly, if you need additional crew, you should just bring carriers. Include carriers into your fleet because they have a lot of crew capacity. Next up is blast doors. Blast doors increases your hull by 20%, and your ships take fewer casualties due to hull damage. It's okay. Increasing your hull size can sometimes matter. Um, I don't think it's really worth it. I never really use it. Um, my combat usually either ends with me not getting touched or me losing half my ships, and blast doors doesn't really change how that fight would go. I think this one is converted hangar because it's open. I think this is converted cargo bay. Again, I never really use these. Converted cargo bay, additional cargo space is always good. Converted hangar, I'm gonna go ahead and put in B tier. Converted hangar just opens up new avenues. Like, you can put converted hangar on destroyers, Costs the least amount of OP, and you get the most bang for your buck. I had one Sunder build that used, I think, longbows in conjunction with some beam weapons so I can crack through shields, and then use like a high intensity laser to do a ton of damage. It was a total meme, but it was just a nice to try. So converted hanger has its merit. ECCM package S tier. Oh boy. I love missiles. I'm a missile enjoyer. This is quite obvious from my gameplay. ECCM package, what it does, let me get it right. Reduces the chance of your missiles to go askew by 50% due to like flares or countermeasures. Increases your missile top speed by 25% and increases your missiles maneuverability by 50%. On top of that, it also reduces the enemy bonus that they gain from having higher ECM rating. ECM rating basically is how many officers does each side have, how many ships does each side have, and the side with the higher ECM rating will get a range bonus, and the side with the lower ECM rating will get a range penalty. So this, I believe, ECCM package just applies to that one ship. So you don't get ECCM, you don't get an ECM bonus to all of your ships, or I should say a penalty reduction to all of your ships. I think it's just a ship with ECCM package. Anyway, all that being said, ECCM package plus Lotus Swarmer plus Sabos, plus harpoons, plus the Merv. ECCM package just guarantee plus the Squall just guarantees that those missiles hit every single time. ECCM package and a Squall, if you put that on something like an Atlas, like a Griffin, like a, I don't think the Heron has a large slot. But anyway, like a support ship, which is a Squall, ECCM package, and expanded missile racks, you're just getting constant kinetic pressure from the back line, all throughout the fight. The Squall never runs out, and every single one of those just impacts. And I believe the Squall also does EMP damage, so even if they drop their shields, you're knocking their weapons offline. Like, you, ECCM package is so good. It's night and day when you use it. So I would definitely recommend it. Even if you're using something like a Reaper, which is unguided, it still increases the top speed of that Reaper, just making it more likely to contact. So, S tier. Definitely S tier. Next up is Efficiency Overhaul. Just reduces the maintenance of your ships. Strong B tier perk. Eventually you get to the point where you don't really care about your ship maintenance, so it is what it is. But in the early game, it's just a nice to have. Doesn't really cost much. This is a perk that I don't recognize. Let me see if I can pull up the list here. This is expanded cargo holds. S tier perk. You'll constantly run into cargo issues, especially if you're doing a lot of exploration, or doing a lot of combat where you're fighting merchant convoys. Just always having more cargo spaces is good. Really good on an Atlas. This is expanded deck crew. I believe this reduces the amount of casualties from your fighters. I don't really use fighters, and crew is very easy to come by in this game. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I don't think it costs a lot of ordnance points. If it does cost a lot of OP, then it's D tier, but otherwise, I think it's C tier. Expanded magazines. Niche, extremely niche. What it does is it increases the size of weapons that use charges. So, this is very few things in the game. This is like your auto pulse laser. This is your exotic weapons. Antimatter blasters. So very, very, very few weapons in the game. Ion cannon. Good. It's good in that it increases the amount of burst that you get out of it. So like an auto pulse cannon goes from 30 to 45 charges. So if you weren't going to kill something in 30, the additional 15 might, do the trick. But actually, I think its OP cost is pretty low. I'll put it in B tier. Um, but it does take up a whole spot on your ship, and that could be tight, just depending on what you're trying to build. Um, I don't know. It's an okay perk. It's extremely limited in what it benefits though, so you have to be very careful because some weapons do have like bursts, but not charges, and expanded magazines won't work on that weapon. So just keep that in mind. Expanded missile racks. Whoo, whoo boy. Uh, Building immediate building on any ship. Even if a ship doesn't have missile slots, build it in. No. Expanded missile racks is one of the best perks in the game, hands down. Or hull mods in the game. It increases your weapon count by 50%, by 100% rather. So it doubles the amount of weapons that your ship has. It like it can't be it can't be overstated how impactful doubling your missile count is. Um, Missiles turn the tide of battle. They win you fights that you normally wouldn't win. They put to bed enemies that would otherwise be annoying or impossible to deal with, like onslaughts, um, any kind of capital ship. Like they just deal with it. They give you alpha strike potential, so you can clear off small ships at the beginning of the battle, or if something approaches from off screen that you have to react to quickly, a couple well placed missiles will very quickly eliminate that target. Um, it doubles your sabo count, so you can stay in the fight longer and eliminate. You can get those early overloads, get rid of those ships very quickly. It's just a monster perk, and it stacks on top of the officer perk, missile specialization, which also gives you another 100%. So you can triple the amount of missiles that you bring into a fight between those two, between the whole mod and the perk. I could go on for days of how valuable this whole mod is, but yeah, it's just great. Next up is extended shields. This increases your shield arc by 60 degrees. I I don't think I've ever used that. Um, there are better ways to increase your shield arc through shield conversion front, which we'll talk about in a second here. I don't know why you would use it, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe if you need a 360-degree shield, then you would use it, but it's just never worth the points to use it. Just get shield conversion front, or if you have a front-facing shield and it doesn't cover your ship, then I, I don't know, just use a better ship. I don't know what to tell you. I've never used this perk, and I don't see the point of it. These two, which is which? Flux Coil Adjunct. This adds flux capacity to your ship. I'm gonna put that in C tier. Flux Distributor though. Flux Distributor adds vents to your ship. Vents are usually more important than capacitors. Vents is what prevents you from overloading in combat, by reducing or by increasing the rate at which you can burn off soft flux while engaging an enemy. So like while your shields are down. It also increases your vent rate, I believe. Nope, that's a different one. Nope, this just increases your vents. I believe that stacks with safety overrides as well, so pretty good there. Next up is a skill that I don't recognize again. This is... Oh, this is Flux Shunt. This shouldn't be on the list because this isn't a hull mod that you can add. So Flux Shunt is on the monitor and just the monitor. It allows you to vent hard flux while your shields are up. Just an incredibly powerful hull mod. If you could install this on a ship, I would build this into literally every single ship in the game. It's insane how good it is. There's a reason why Safety Override's monitor is one of the most broken ships in the game, and it's because of Flux Shunt. So this shouldn't be here, but it is what it is. Accidentally included that in the list. This is shield conversion front. Yes. This is a very good perk. It does a lot for a very small OP cost. One, it locks your shield to the front, so you trade off omnidirectional shields for a front-facing shield. It reduces the shield cost, your shield cost. It cuts it in half, and then it also increases your shield arc. So triple win. Very very good perk. I'm gonna move it up behind. Actually, I'm gonna move it behind Expanded Miserax. Move right here. Um, yeah, you can use it on a Paragon to get a 360-degree shield. No, Paragon starts with 360. Sorry, you can use it on a monitor to get a 360-degree shield. The monitor has Fortress Shield. I was confusing the two. To get a 360-degree shield of the monitor, most shields actually in the game will, after you shield converted front, will extend to 360 degrees. They do start in the front, so it does take a while for the shields to reach the back of your ship, but once it's up, you do have a 360-degree shield. This might pair well with accelerated shields, if you want to pair those two together. Next up is Makeshift Shield Generator. This is a very bad perk. It gives you a shield. Don't use unshielded ships, is all I can tell you. You shouldn't ever have to use this perk because you shouldn't ever use a ship without shields. If you want to know exactly what it does, it gives you a forward-facing shield that has a 90-degree arc. So first of all, it doesn't even cover half your ship. It's literally just a quarter. And then it reduces your ship's top speed by 20%. Yikes. For a tiny baby shield. No, definitely not worth it. Auxiliary fuel tanks. It's just nice to have. It increases the range at which your fleet can explore. Really good on a Phaeton. Usually a Phaeton with this is more than enough to carry around like 2 capital ships, so definitely worth it. Ooh, Hardin Shields, S tier perk. It reduces the amount of damage that you take by 25%, I believe. 15%. Even at 15%, it's still good. Let me go ahead and move it up here. Usually a build-in on most of my ships. If not, it's definitely an include. Next up is Hardened Subsystems. This increases your peak performance time. I don't really care. I'm a safety overrides enjoyer, and I still don't use Hardened Subsystems, just because I try to end the fight before peak performance time becomes an issue. I understand its value. I'm gonna go put it up in C tier. I understand its value. I just don't personally use it. Heavy armor. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Armor is good. Armor is great. It reduces the amount of damage that you take from energy weapons and kinetic damage, but it does have its limits. It is non-renewable, unlike shields, so eventually it will deplete, and then after it depletes, it's useless. It's not entirely useless. You still get I believe, a 10% damage reduction from like phantom armor or residual armor, but after it depletes, it's basically not blocking anything. You're just taking hull damage at that point. So while it does give you a nice massive head start, it doesn't really. It's not gonna win you the fight, essentially. Like it'll help you stay in the fight longer, but it won't win the fight on its own. Not like expanded missile racks or ECCM package will. High resolution sensors, very good perk. It hold on. Yes, it increases your sensor range. So for me, this is very important because I do a lot of convoy hunting, so I need to know where those convoys are. I also sometimes need to avoid fleets, so being able to detect them at a further range is more important. It also... Oh, wait, sorry. No, I was thinking of a different one. I was thinking of survey. Yeah, I'm thinking of this one. This just increases your sensor range, so good for finding other fleets. This is high scatter amplifier. This allows your beam weapons to do hard flux damage. But it significantly reduces their range, if I recall correctly. No, no. You don't need your beam weapons to do hard flux damage. You definitely don't want your beam weapons to be short range. For hard flux damage, you want to use something like hypervelocity drivers. You want to use railguns, needlers, um, things that have long range already and do kinetic damage. You want your beam weapons just to be beam weapons and do that constant damage at long range. Do not use high scatter amplifier. Unless you're doing some memory like on an apogee or something, or like with a Sunder, don't take this perk. Insulated engine assembly, I believe, gives you... It reduces the amount of your ship's sensor profile, so it cuts it in half. And I believe it also gives you an armor bonus. Nope. It increases your ship hull integrity. It's okay. It's really good in stealth missions. So where you have to go like deploy a spy satellite or something. It's good there. You can put this on phase ships and make them basically invisible. So that's also nice. But otherwise I don't think it's really that useful. It'd be nice if it increased your burn speed as well. Like maybe by 1. Then I would include it on more ships, but as is, you don't really need it. Next up is integrated point defense. This is a D perk. It increases the amount of damage that you do. It converts all your weapons so that they are point defense weapons, which is bad in and of itself. It increases the accuracy of those weapons against fighters, missiles, like point defense targets. And then it increases the amount of damage that you do to missiles by 50%. First of all, I don't use point defense. I use a monitor to screen for me, so I really don't get any benefit out of this perk. And then the second thing is your weapons converting to point defense is horrible. You do not want your weapons firing at fighters and missiles in the middle of an engagement. If your opponent uses something like Annihilator rocket pods or locusts or pylons or whatever, your ship is going to spend more time shooting at those non-threatening weapons than they are going to be doing engaging the enemy. I'm actually going to put that in F tier, bottom of F tier. It's good if you put it on an escort ship, something like an Omen, because I believe the arc emitter also will benefit from the increased damage to missiles. But besides that, I don't know why you would ever use that perk. You could also put it on Tempest. Alright, so there are some point defense escort ships you can use it on, but don't ever put it on your flagship or your damage dealers. Please don't. Integrated point defense, integrated targeting unit, S tier perk. Increases the range of all your weapons by a significant margin. On a frigate, it's 10%. On a destroyer, it's 20. On a cruiser, it's 40, and then on a capital ship, it's 60%. Borderline necessary on a capital ship. Definitely a build-in or at least an include. Would strongly recommend it. Just again, safety overrides enjoyer. Still, I recommend being able to control the battlefield at least with your capital ships. So definitely would recommend it. On a cruiser, it's still good. Even 40% increased range is phenomenal. That stacks with things like ballistic mastery and with gunnery implants. So why would you not take it? It also stacks with ballistic rangefinder as well. So you get those smalls extend their range even further. This is Militarized Subsystems. I'm gonna put it in low D tier. The reason being is unless you're doing something specific like running, civilian only fleet or something like that, you don't ever really need it. And on top of that, it interacts with bulk transport negatively. Bulk transport, what it does is it's a character perk that increases the burn speed of all non-militarized ships by 2. So if you take a freighter like an Atlas and put militarized subsystems on it, you're going to reduce the +2 burn speed of that Atlas. Not reduce it, but you're not going to get that bonus. So it's definitely not going to be worth it. The trade-offs though are that if you put militarized subsystem on, you get +1 burn speed, your flux dissipation increases by 10%, and you get 10 additional armor. It also increases the minimum crew you need to pilot that ship by 100%. So on freighters, usually that doesn't really matter. Their crew count is usually really low. But it's just not worth it. I also think there's something in here. I remember militarized subsystems also reducing your sensor profile, but I don't see it in the tooltip there. So I think that's also a thing, but maybe not. Just don't use non-combat ships for combat, or don't use non-militarized ships for combat. Put it in F tier. This is Nav Relay. Nav Relay is good if you stack it. So if you put it on a bunch of frigates, basically it'll increase the nav rating of your fleet. And what nav rating is, it's a top speed multiplier. It just increases the top speed of all your ships fleet wide. So if you have a bunch of frigates, then you can add this to them if you have spare OP. And among like 6 or 7 frigates, now you're talking about 7% more top speed across your entire fleet. You're definitely going to notice that difference. Put in high B tier. Then we have the Wonder Twins here. One's Neural Integrator, one is Neural Interface. Okay. Neural Integrator allows you to partner with any other ship that shares this perk. I'm gonna put this in D tier. Neural Interface allows you to connect with an AI ship. I'm gonna put this in S tier. So, the reason they're so far apart, being able to connect to a second ship doesn't really matter in Starsector. The way I wish this perk worked instead is when you connect to another ship. Also, you need a character perk in order to use this. So you don't even get it for free. Like you can't even put it on your flagship in another ship and then just use it. You need the perk to do it. The way this perk works is, I believe if you hit the T key, it'll jump you to whatever the linked ship is. At that point, you'll control the ship. You lose control of your previous ship. Your previous ship, I believe, goes on just autopilot. And then if you hit the T key again, you'll jump back to that ship. Some ideas you might have is something like hammer and anvil, where you can position one ship to be the hammer, or position one ship to be the anvil. Once you get in position, you switch over to the hammer, which would be, your flanking ship, and then deal with the target like that. That's not how Starsector works. Once you leave the other ship, the AI is just going to do what it wants. It's going to fly away. It's going to go engage something else. It's going to move. It's going to get destroyed. Uh, a myriad of things are going to happen, and that hammer and anvil setup is not going to work. The way I wish this skill worked, and the way it should work, is you should get, you should be able to spend, or you should be able to command your link ship without spending ordnance points or command points. You should be able to give it any number of commands, and it should act as if it has an alpha core in it. So the way that works is with redacted ships, with the higher the core is in the ship, the smarter the ship acts. So a ship with no core in it will just engage blindly on whatever is in front of it. A ship with an alpha core inside of it will engage a target, break away, wait for that target to get overloaded, and then come back and finish the kill. So when you jump to another ship, um, when you jump to your link ship, the ship that you left behind would act as if it has an alpha core in it and would use higher uh, higher tier tactics, basically, to maintain itself, to stay safe, to follow through on like a given command. Maybe even open it up so that you have additional orders that you can use, like hold the line, hold position, um, stay stationary, whatever. Like it would open up additional orders that you could use for the link ship so that you can guide it specifically to do what you want it to do. Just right now in vanilla Starsector, that level of fidelity and dexterity just doesn't exist. So for that reason, it's just a D perk. It costs a lot, as a very high opportunity cost, and it's pointless. What you could do with this, you could just do with the ships that you already have in your fleet. Very, very long rant. The upside, though, is that both ships would benefit from your officer perks. So, from your character perks. Now, neural interface, on the other hand, is in S tier, and the reason being is because there's one ship in the game, and one ship that really matters is the Radiant. This perk, this hull mod, allows you to pilot a Radiant, and I don't know if you ever have piloted a Radiant, but ooh boy, it is quite a ship. Now you can't put an alpha core in the Radiant, unfortunately, so you can't get too overpowered. But it does maintain your officer skills, your character skills. So you can tailor make your character to pilot a Radiant. You can give it maneuverability, you can give it missile specialization, ordnance expertise, whatever you want on that Radiant, and then you can pilot it yourself. And a Radiant in the AI's hand is devastating. A Radiant in the player's hands is nigh unstoppable. So definitely would recommend this perk. Uh, or recommend trying that out. Actually, I'm gonna move down to A tier because it's extremely niche. And also, I'm gonna move this down to B tier. Now that I think about it, it is very niche, but I would definitely try it at least once. Next up is the opposite of Shield Conversion Front. This is Shield Conversion Omni. I never use this perk. It's just worse. It increases. Hold on. Shield Conversion Omni reduces your shield arc by 25%, and it decreases your upkeep by 25%. Um, no, I think front-facing shields are just superior. Reducing your upkeep is pretty nice, but reducing your shield arc is yeah, that's harsh. If you could just convert it over to Omni without the shields um, without reducing the arc of your shield, then I would definitely recommend it. But because it costs that, then I just can't. Op Center is really good if you are like me and you spend a lot of command points micromanaging your fleet. This just increases the rate on your flagship at which you gain them, I believe, by 300%, 250%. So really good. Put it on your flagship, and then you can micromanage your fleet. Next up, we have Phase Anchor. Phase Anchor is an S tier perk. It increases, or when you go into phase space, it reduces the amount of time it takes for your weapons to recharge. So that's on everything. Your, um, that's on your Reapers. That's on your antimatter blasters. That's on needlers. Anything. It also, I believe, it increases your charge rate. So on things like ion cannons, it also works. And then also, if you are about to lose your ship, this applies to only one phase ship on either side. So if the AI does this before you do, you don't get the benefit. But the first phase ship that would normally be eliminated instead drops into emergency phase space and leaves combat. So you can put this on very valuable phase ships like your Dooms, and then instead of losing them in combat, they would teleport off the battlefield, and you can recover them after combat. Next up is Adaptive Phase Coil. This just offsets the penalty that was introduced in 0.95 to top speed. Basically, your ships will be as fast as they used, not as fast, but nearly as fast as they used to be prior to the flux nerf to phase ships. If you don't know, prior to 0.95, phase ships moved at their top speed regardless of their flux level. So you'd have phase ships zipping around at 200, 300, 400 top speed. If you spec all the way into it, you could get up to like 600 top speed in a Afflictor, just darting around the battlefield doing stupid stuff. You were impossible to catch. Like the AI was just egregious with this. And then after 0.95, the higher the flux level of the phase ship, the slower the phase ship goes. Then eventually it can't phase anymore. So this looks to offset that penalty that was introduced. Really good for dodge tanking. You could put this on a Afflictor, on a Shade, whatever, and use it to harass larger ships, capital ships. It'll just keep it occupied the entire time. Uh, Recovery shuttles, I think, just reduces your crew casualty rate. And C tier. Reinforced bulkheads just increases your hull integrity. C tier, it's whatever. Resistant flux conduit. Let me read it off. Resistant flux conduit. It reduces the amount of damage taken from EMP weapons by 50%, and then it also increases your ship's flux dissipation rate by 25%. That's really good. I use safety overrides, but even I recognize just being able to vent faster is really good. And then also taking reduced EMP damage is good because basically EMP weapons, most of them chain, and if it takes more EMP damage to damage a weapon, then it chains less. It goes to the less weapon. It has a less likely chance to hop to the next weapon and then the next weapon, and then the next one. So and then get to your engines. So having this can really devastate like a high-tech fleet or somebody that's spec'd into mostly claws or any kind of EMP. Any kind of EMP fleet. Next up, King of Kings, the number one, hands down, S tier perk in the game. Do not at me. Safety overrides. Whoo boy. Oh man, this perk. So back in the day, you used to be able to build this into your ship. They removed that ability, that option, and I really don't like that decision. Safety overrides cost a lot, and it really reduces the amount of build design that you have available to you. One day, I hope they do decide to revert that. That would be really nice. But it is what it is for right now. Safety overrides. All right, where to begin? So I'm gonna read it off because there's a safety overrides. There's a lot to your ship. It increases your top speed in combat by 50, 30, or 20 depending on the size of your ship. So you can't put it on capital ships. You can only put it on frigates, destroyers, and cruisers. It increases the flux dissipation rate of your vents by a factor of 2, so it doubles the amount of soft flux that you can vent by a factor of 2, and then it reduces. This is at the cost of reducing your weapon range down to 450. So trying to extend it past 450 is going to be very ineffective. And then it's also going to cut your peak performance time by a factor of 3. So, all right, safety overrides is you, you need to build a specific fleet if you're going to go safety overrides. I am of the mentality that um, if you do go with safety overrides, your fleet should be geared towards close combat engagements, a lot of missiles, a lot of missile spam, a lot of high damaging weapons, so assault chain guns, using things that are low flux cost, like light machine guns, like dual machine guns, heavy machine guns, um, Vulcan cannons if you want, and just rushing down the enemy as fast as possible, get them off the battlefield, move on to the next fight. Safety overrides delivers on all of that. Having reduced weapon range doesn't really matter if your weapon ranges don't exceed 500 anyway. Having low peak performance time doesn't matter if you're ending the fight before 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Um, Being able to outmaneuver the enemy, being able to flank around, being able to just get in there and tear it up is such a valuable part of Starsector's combat. That said, safety overrides does have its limitations, obviously. If you build a long range fleet, if you build a fleet that takes too long to get into combat, if you have too many capital ships, if you build your fleet without safety overrides in mind, but you like the idea of just moving around a little faster, you're going to have a bad time. Your ships will get destroyed. Your ships will not last through the fight. They will get eliminated. They will get outranged. Uh, any number of things will happen to them. So, definitely, if you're building safety overrides, I would include it on all of the ships in the fleet, and I would also use aggressive officers that are tailor made for doing damage um, to build around. So, that being said, safety overrides, S tier perk, would highly recommend it. Give it a go. Try a safety overrides fleet if you haven't. If you have, let me know how it goes in the comments. If you have any ideas for safety override ships, go ahead and share them either in the comments or in the Discord. I'm looking forward to more safety overrides designs. One, I'll share one. One safety overrides idea that I came up with. I don't know if this is good or bad. This is just what I came up with. It's a safety overrides Griffin. The reason being is safety overrides decreases your weapon range, but a Griffin is a missile boat, and it doesn't affect your missile range. So you get a faster Griffin that can move in and out of combat, that its main function is not affected by the drawbacks of safety overrides. That just seems like all upsides to me. If the rest of your fleet is using safety overrides, then the peak performance time of the Griffin doesn't really matter, because if the only thing you have left on the battlefield is a single Griffin because all the rest of your ships have lost their peak performance time and their combat readiness, then you're not going to win that fight anyway. So by giving the Griffin safety overrides, I can include it in my fast fleet. So that's just one idea that I came up with. But let me know what you guys think about that. Next up we have Shield Shunt. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in D tier. There's some experimenting I need to do. I saw a couple videos of people using Shield Shunt on Legion 14s, and apparently Legion 14s are unkillable if you stack all the armor perks. So I do need to do some investigating on that. I haven't been able to yet. So for right now, it's in D tier, but it has potential to go higher. Basically, what Shield Shunt does is it trades off your shields for more armor rating. I don't, I don't know why you would do that. Armor, again, like I said before, with heavy armor is limited, whereas shields are unlimited in the amount of damage that they can absorb. So, uh, do with that what you will. Next up is solar shielding. Solar shielding is really good if you're facing redacted fleets. It's also really good if you're fighting Tritachyon. It reduces the amount of damage that you take from energy weapons by 20%. Yes, reduces energy damage taken by 20%. It also reduces the amount of damage that you take from coronas and from hyperspace storms. Next up is stabilized shields. This cuts the cost of your shielding in half. You get that for free with, or you get that included with shield conversion front. So this perk by itself, not really useful. It doesn't cost a lot of OP, so you can include it on ships with like really high shield costs. So things like the Fury, the Paragon, you can put it on a Radiant. Uh, but otherwise, you don't ever really need this perk. I'm gonna move it down to D tier actually. And next up, this is what I was thinking of. Um, this is survey equipment. Survey equipment is a S tier perk. Um, very rare that non-combat perks end up in S tier. But it's a S tier perk. The reason being is because it reduces the amount of cost it requires to conduct surveys. This is important because as you do your exploration, the last thing you need is to run out of supplies while you're in hyperspace. Each survey costs, I believe, heavy machinery and supplies to do. So this reduces the cost there. On top of that, it also I thought this increased your. Okay, I'm confusing like three different perks. I thought this one also increased your detection range of ships. Oh well. Alright, I'm gonna move it down to A tier then, because it's only good for exploration. I thought it increases your sensor range. Oh well. A tier reduces your survey equipment costs. Put it on freighters like your atlases, because you're gonna bring them anyway, and then also put it on salvage rigs. Um, to reduce that cost down to a minimum of 5 and 5. Next up is dedicated targeting core. You start with this perk. It's okay. It's like integrated targeting unit. The only difference is it has lower values. Replace it with integrated targeting unit as soon as you can. And then finally we have unstable injector. This just makes your ship go faster at the cost of weapon range. Um, I'm gonna put that in C tier. Um, like you may think, okay, well I already have reduced weapon range because of safety overrides. Don't pair these together. Do not. You will have no weapon range, and then you're basically flying around a brick that needs to be at point blank distance to the enemy. Do like do not do that. You're gonna have a really bad time. Um, but yeah, reducing weapon range for top speed is not really worth it. All right, but anyway, that is the list. Any changes that I want to make, last minute changes? I might want to move this one up. Ballistic Rangefinder will move down a little bit. I think I'm happy with these changes, these choices. Anyway, that's the tier list. Let me know what you guys think. How did I butcher your favorite skill? how is my reasoning uh, insane? Just let me know in the comments below. Other than that, Grumpy out.